Imagine paying a highly skilled, intelligent employee like $2,300 every single month just to manually copy and paste text from an email inbox into a database all day.
Which is, yeah, it's just a massive waste of human potential.
It sounds absurd, right? Almost like a punishment for the employee. But if you look under the hood of most small and medium-sized businesses, you are probably paying for that exact inefficiency right now.
Oh, without a doubt. And, the invisible cost isn't just the salary. It's the opportunity cost.
Right.
You have a capable human mind performing a robotic task instead of, well, driving growth.
Yeah.
The current landscape of business operations is just filled with these hidden bottlenecks.
And for decades, we just accepted them as the cost of doing business.
Exactly. We just dealt with it.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a fascinating stack of research from AI Studio, and our mission today is incredibly specific.
Highly specific.
We are ignoring the hype. We are moving completely past the novelty of generative AI. We aren't talking about how cool it is that a computer can write a poem or generate a funny image.
Right. None of that.
Instead, we're looking at the hard, undeniable math of AI agents. And we're going to explain exactly how business owners can calculate the real dollar return on investment of implementing an autonomous system today.
And that framing is crucial for you as the listener. We are not talking about playing with chatbots here.
No.
The sources from AI Studio make a definitive case that implementing AI agents is a core infrastructure decision.
Yeah, an operational upgrade.
Precisely. It's an upgrade that will fundamentally alter the unit economics of a business over the next 2 to 3 years. The companies that understand how to deploy these systems will simply operate at a radically different cost structure than competitors who cling to manual processes.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we all know the fatigue of logging into a tool like ChatGPT, trying to write the absolute perfect prompt, waiting for the output, and then copying that output into a different application.
You're still the motor in that scenario.
Exactly. You are the motor.
Yeah.
You're just trading one manual task for another. It's like having a really fancy hammer, but you still have to swing it. But the sources draw a massive distinction between those manual AI tools and what they call autonomous AI agents.
Right. The difference lies in how the technology integrates into your existing systems. A manual tool requires a human pilot. An AI agent, though, it's like a hammer that swings itself on a schedule. It operates like a background engine that triggers automatically based on an event.
So no one is sitting there hitting enter.
Exactly. It's a program designed to take incoming unstructured data, like a really chaotic customer email process, the data through a language model to understand the intent, and then autonomously execute a sequence of actions across your other software platforms without anyone ever touching a keyboard.
Okay, but let me push back on the novelty of that for a second, because we've had automation for years.
Zero, we have.
I can go into a tool like Zapier right now, tell it to take a new form submission on my website, and push it into my CRM. So why do I need an AI agent for that?
Well, what's fascinating here is that traditional automation is strictly deterministic. It relies on rigid, perfect templates. If X happens, do Y.
Right.
The fatal flaw with tools like Zapier is that they break the second something doesn't fit the exact template. Like if a customer types their phone number into the address field, a traditional automation tool throws an error and stops.
Because it doesn't know what a phone number is, it just knows it's not a zip code.
Exactly. It requires manual configuration for every single edge case. But an AI agent is probabilistic. It uses the language model as a reasoning engine to handle the messy, unstructured reality of human communication.
So it isn't just following a predetermined pipe, it's actively interpreting the data as it flows through.
Yeah.
Like, if a customer sends an arbitrary rambling paragraph saying, hey, I bought the blue shirt last Tuesday, but it doesn't fit, and also I moved so my address is different, can you send the replacement to my new house? A standard automation rule just panics.
It completely crashes.
But the AI agent actually reads it, extracts the multiple intents, updates the address in the shipping software, flags the return in the inventory system, and drafts the personalized reply.
And the mechanism behind that is what makes it so powerful. The agent uses an API to ingest that messy email. It asks the language model to pluck out the specific data points, the item, the new address, the issue, and then formats that data into a clean, structured JSON payload.
Which perfectly matches the required fields of your CRM and inventory systems.
Exactly. It acts as a universal translator between human chaos and database logic.
Which brings us to the architecture of where these agents actually live and work. Here's where it gets really interesting. According to the AI Studio sources, every business operates across 3 distinct layers.
Right, regardless of industry.
Right, the operational layer, the communicational layer, and the analytical layer. And what stands out in the research is the explicit recommendation to focus first on the operational layer if you want the fastest return on investment.
Yeah, to visualize this in your own company, the operational layer consists of routine tasks governed by clear rules. So this is processing inbound requests, issuing invoices, routing tickets, or just basic data entry.
The stuff nobody really wants to do anyway.
Exactly. Then the communicational layer handles your 24/7 correspondence, like initial lead qualification and routine customer support. And finally, the analytical layer involves pulling data from disparate sources, finding anomalies, and assembling reports.
Now, all 3 offer massive potential, right? But jumping straight into the communicational layer means you're putting a brand new AI directly in front of your customers.
Which carries a lot of brand risk.
Yeah, a ton of risk. Starting in the operational layer keeps the AI internal, but obviously you can't just automate every operational process at once.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right, so the source recommends a very specific automation audit to find the perfect starting point. You score your routine tasks on 2 dimensions: time spent per week and the degree of standardization.
You're hunting for the intersection of high volume and high predictability.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a process might take a manager 20 hours a week, but if every single instance requires deep, subjective human judgment, it's a terrible candidate for automation.
Right, the AI would just guess and probably get it wrong.
Exactly. And conversely, a task might be perfectly standardized, but if it only takes 10 minutes a month.
The ROI on automating it is basically 0.
And negligible, yeah. You want the task that drains the most hours while following the most predictable logic.
Okay, let's apply that audit matrix to a real workflow. Instead of just listing out the capabilities, let's follow a single customer journey to see how an agent handles the 5 specific tasks outlined in the research. Let's start at the top of the funnel. Task 1. An inbound request comes in. A potential client emails asking for pricing and details.
So in a manual setup, a human reads that email, figures out what the client wants, opens Salesforce, types in the contact info, creates a new deal record, and writes a response.
Which takes a few minutes at least.
Right, but an AI agent takes over that exact ingestion process. It reads the intent, maps the variables to the CRM via an API, and preps the reply. The processing time drops from a few minutes to roughly 60 to 90 seconds.
Wow.
Over a month, that alone saves a sales manager hours of administrative overhead.
But not all leads are created equal, which leads to the second task, lead qualification. It is an incredible waste of money to have senior sales reps talking to people who don't have the budget or just don't fit the ideal customer profile.
It really is. So an agent can instantly reply to that inbound request with a few clarifying questions, and it evaluates the prospect's answers dynamically.
Oh, so it's not just a static form.
Right. If the lead fits the criteria, the agent automatically drops a calendar link to schedule a call with a human rep. The data in the sources indicates that sales team conversion rates can jump 30 to 40% when an agent handles the initial qualification.
30 to 40% just because they aren't wasting time on bad leads.
Exactly. The highly paid human talent is exclusively deployed toward high-intent, fully vetted prospects.
Okay, so the human rep does what they do best. They close the deal. Now we hit task 3, the document workflow. This is usually where momentum just dies in a small business.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone has to manually pull the deal terms from the CRM, open a Word document, find and replace the names and pricing, export it to a PDF, upload it to a signature platform, and email it to the client.
And that process routinely takes a human team member 20 minutes of manual data entry. And honestly, it is highly prone to copy-paste errors.
Oh, 100%. You leave the old client's name in paragraph 4.
Yes. We've all done it. But an agent triggers the moment the deal is marked closed won in the CRM. It pulls the accepted proposal data, maps to the contract template, generates the secure signature link, and emails it with a personalized note based on the previous interactions.
So a 20-minute chore becomes
a 40-second background operation.
That is just incredible. Okay, now the prospect is a paying customer, and eventually they're going to have a problem. They need support, which is the 4th task. Routine customer inquiries like, where is my order, or how do I reset my password? Absolutely clog up help desks.
Right, and here an agent steps in as the first line of defense in the communicational layer. And because it's tied to your internal databases, It doesn't just give generic FAQ answers.
It's not just saying, check our website.
Exactly. It can actually look up the specific tracking number or trigger the password reset protocol. It independently resolves 60 to 80% of routine inquiries instantly.
Regardless of the time zone.
24/7. And it only escalates the truly complex, nuanced edge cases to a live human specialist.
Finally, we reach the fifth task, which sits in the analytical layer. Automated reporting. Leadership obviously wants to know how all of these interactions are performing.
Of course.
So instead of an analyst spending 2 hours every morning pulling data from Shopify, Google Analytics, and the CRM to build some massive Excel spreadsheet, the agent executes a daily script.
It queries those databases, compiles the metrics, formats a readable summary, and pushes a dashboard directly into a Slack channel.
So the executive team has yesterday's numbers within 5 minutes of waking up.
And the human analyst gets 2 hours of their day back to actually interpret the data rather than just moving it around.
So what does this all mean? Let's put some hard math behind this, because visualizing the time saved is one thing, but translating it to the bottom line is where the unit economics completely shift.
Let's do it.
The AI Studio source provides a brilliant case study of a small e-commerce company called Maple and Oak Supply. They have an 8-person team. Before they implemented any automation, they had a manager spending 3 hours every single day processing routine requests and managing that customer correspondence we just talked about.
Okay, so if we break down the fully loaded cost of that manager, let's say it comes out to roughly $35 an hour.
Sounds reasonable.
3 hours a day at $35 an hour is $105 a day. When you extrapolate that out, the business is spending about $2,300 a month purely to have a human being act as a router for repetitive information.
$2,300 every month, indefinitely. Now let's look at the cost to replace that specific workflow with an agent. The source estimates the one-time development and configuration cost to build a custom agent for this process is between $6,000 and $12,000.
Right.
And once it's built, the ongoing monthly operating cost is somewhere between $150 to $400 a month.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the underlying reason that operating cost is so low is crucial to understand. You aren't paying a salary for a system to sit idle between emails.
Oh, that's a good point.
You're paying for API calls to the language model. Think of API calls like paying for electricity by the kilowatt. You only pay a fraction of a cent in the exact millisecond. The AI's processing engine is turned on to interpret a specific email.
And the moment the task is done, the meter stops.
Exactly. That is why the monthly cost plummets to just a few $100s.
So if we take the absolute highest end of those estimates, a $12,000 one-time build, and $400 a month to run it, and compare it against the $2,300 monthly human cost, the business is saving $1,900 every single month.
The math is undeniable.
That means the entire $12,000 investment pays for itself in less than 7 months. If you use the lower end of the estimates, the payback period is just 3 to 5 months.
And the implications for margin expansion there are incredible. Think about it. If Maple and Oak scales from 100 orders a month to 1,000 orders a month, their API cost might go from $300 to $400.
Right, a tiny bump.
But in a manual system, scaling the order volume by 10 times would require hiring at least 2 or 3 more full-time support staff.
Which destroys your profit margin.
Exactly. The AI agent provides non-linear scaling. The revenue grows exponentially while the operational cost remains virtually flat.
And what happens to that manager? They don't get fired. Maple and Oak pivoted them. The manager stopped copying data between systems and transitioned entirely to proactive sales and account expansion.
Which generates even more revenue.
Exactly. The company gained $1,900 a month in pure operational savings, dropped their customer response time to 90 seconds, and effectively gained a new sales rep without increasing payroll. That is the definition of transforming unit economics.
But, with a payback period of just a few months and clear margin expansion, the obvious question is why every single business isn't executing this flawlessly today.
Right. What's the catch?
Well, the reality is that implementations fail frequently. And the sources identify 4 fatal mistakes that companies make when trying to adopt this technology.
Okay, let's go through them. The first, and honestly the most destructive mistake, is attempting to automate chaos.
Oh, yes.
Business owners often view AI as this magical organizational tool. They assume that if their internal process is undocumented, If their team members handle requests differently depending on the day, the AI will just step in and figure it out.
Which is completely wrong.
Right. Feeding a chaotic, broken process into an AI agent doesn't fix the process, it just scales the chaos.
Yeah.
The agent will execute the wrong steps with terrifying speed.
Terrifying is the right word.
Before you write a single line of code, the process must be documented with absolute precision inputs, variables, expected outputs, and the rules for handling exceptions.
Absolutely. And the second major mistake stems from a misunderstanding of the architecture. Business leaders often expect a manual interface, like a ChatGPT window, to act as an embedded agent.
Right, they just buy ChatGPT Plus for everyone.
Yeah, they buy a subscription, give it to their employees, and expect productivity to double. But providing a chat interface still requires the human to act as the prompt engineer and the data mover. True automation must be embedded in the background, communicating directly between your software via APIs without waiting for a human to type a command.
Then there's the third mistake, the boil the ocean approach. A CEO reads an article about AI, gets this huge surge of inspiration, and decides to overhaul the entire company's infrastructure in a single weekend.
Never works.
They try to automate sales, support, and operations all at once.
And those wholesale transformations inevitably collapse under their own weight. The systems conflict, edge cases overwhelm the logic, and the team revolts against the sudden disruption. The disciplined approach is to find the single process causing the most friction, build a targeted agent, prove the return on investment, and only then consider expanding.
Which leads directly into the fourth fatal error, deploying without quality control. Think of it like this. Let's say you hire a brilliant, lightning-fast intern straight out of university. You would never hand them the master passwords to your CRM, give them full permission to email your best clients, and then leave for a month-long vacation.
That would be insane.
Right. You would supervise them constantly in the beginning. You have to treat an AI agent with the exact same level of skepticism and oversight.
Exactly. The sources explicitly recommend a phased rollout to ensure quality control. For the first 2 to 4 weeks, the agent should not be allowed to send anything externally.
Oh, so it just drafts it.
Yes. It drafts the responses or prepares the data entries, and a human must manually review and approve every single action. You are auditing its reasoning. Once it proves it handles the rules flawlessly, you can elevate its permissions, but you still maintain a weekly spot audit of its logs.
So to avoid these 4 pitfalls, the research lays out a highly structured 90-day roadmap to execution. It completely removes the guesswork. Let's break down how a business owner should actually spend these 3 months.
Okay.
Phase 1 covers days 1 through 30. And surprisingly, there is zero software development happening here. This phase is purely about the audit and selection process.
Right. During that first month, you're sitting down with your team and listing every repeatable task they perform. You apply the matrix we discussed earlier, scoring each task on weekly hours consumed versus the degree of standardization.
Hitting that sweet spot.
Exactly. And then you document the winning process meticulously. You write down every keystroke, every decision tree, and every exception. By day 30, you should have a blueprint so clear that a human could follow it flawlessly without asking a single question.
Then phase 2 hits, days 30 to 60. This is the development and testing sprint. You build the agent, connect the APIs, and configure the language model prompts. But the critical rule here is that you run the agent in parallel with your human workers.
Yes, do not turn off the manual process.
Right. The human continues to do the work, and the AI agent processes the exact same data in a sandbox environment. You compare the AI's output against the human's output side by side to catch the edge cases where the AI hallucinates or fails.
And that parallel testing builds trust. Once the agent's output consistently matches or exceeds the human baseline, you move into phase 3, days 60 to 90. This is production.
Finally,
you turn off the manual process and let the agent take the wheel. But this raises an important question. How do we measure success? You must measure it using objective, real-world metrics, not just intuition.
And the sources highlight 3 specific metrics to track during this final 30-day sprint. First, processing time, tracking the drop from hours to seconds. Second, the error rate, proving the agent makes fewer data entry mistakes than the fatigued human worker. And third, customer satisfaction signals, monitoring if clients are responding positively to the instant, accurate resolutions.
And only after you complete that full 90-day cycle, review those 3 metrics and verify the hard dollar ROI you originally calculated, should you consider scaling.
Don't jump the gun.
Right. And the scaling process isn't about giving the agent more unrelated tasks. It's about taking the exact same 90-day discipline and applying it sequentially to the next highest priority process identified in your initial audit. Layer by layer, you build an automated infrastructure.
As we bring all these concepts together, the overarching narrative is clear. AI automation has moved past the experimental phase. It is no longer a trendy accessory, it's fundamental operational infrastructure. We started this deep dive talking about the difference between a tool that requires you to push it and an autonomous engine that runs in the background. The businesses that adopt these autonomous engines are reshaping their foundations.
The case study math is just undeniable. A company that implements targeted AI agents today is locking in a dramatically lower cost structure. In 3 years, when competitors are forced to raise prices to cover bloated human payrolls for administrative tasks, the automated businesses will have wider margins, faster response times, and a human workforce dedicated entirely to high-leverage creative problem-solving. The strategic question is no longer whether you should automate. It's identifying the specific process you are going to automate tomorrow morning.
The shift from manual effort to managed autonomous systems is fully underway, which leaves me with a completely different angle for you to consider as we wrap up. If AI agents can effectively drive the cost of routine business operations, the entire operational and communicational layers down to near zero, we are approaching a fascinating frontier.
We really are.
We might be looking at a future where a single hyper-creative individual can run a massive enterprise-level operation entirely from their laptop. The billion-dollar one-person company has always been a myth, but with an army of AI agents handling the execution, that myth might become a reality much sooner than we think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.